Welcome to Early Care Connection. I'm Izzy Greenberg. Today we are joined by our usual panel of experts, Meryl Gay from the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance and Ava Bermudez Zimmerman from the Child Care for Connecticut's Future campaign. We've got some quick updates this morning. We're going to start out, happy Eclipse Day. I hope everybody is going to do something cool. We may have some clouds, but we might at least notice the birds doing evening chirping or something cool like that. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, we are joined this morning by Eloisa Melendez, who is the lead planner for the Blue Ribbon Panel, who is going to start us off by giving us some information about some sessions happening this week and ways that you can participate. Eloisa, welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Izzy. Good morning, everyone. Happy Week of the Young Child. We are hosting, OVC, we are hosting 2 sessions this week to kind of celebrate the Week of the Young Child. Commissioner Beth Bai will give updates on the Blue Ribbon Panel, take some questions on that, and then really she just wants to hear from you. The 2 sessions are Haven and Stamford, the first being tomorrow and the second on Thursday. Both are 5:30 to 7. I'm going to put in the chat just a registration link and also the flyer. But really, we hope to see you there. And I'll also include our feedback form, which is still live on our Blue Ribbon website, which is on the OVC website. So anytime you have any feedback that you want to give the commissioner, the OVC staff, that is live. So if anyone is unable to attend either of those sessions, please share your feedback there. We also hope to have one very soon virtually so that people who can't make it to either New Haven or Stamford this week can also give their feedback there. So thank you so much for having me on and hope to see you all there.
Do you have a flyer, Eloisa, that we can share?
Yep, I'll put that in the chat right now.
All right, great. Is it in English and Spanish? And are these sessions in English and Spanish or only English?
These sessions, thank you for that question. These sessions are in English, which is why we want to be able to have a virtual one as soon as possible so that one can be in Spanish also.
All right, and you'll let us know when that will be.
Yeah, and hopefully I can come right back on here.
All right, thank you so much. Great, thanks. Okay, I am going to pass it over to Meryl to give us a legislative update. A lot happening. We're deep in the session. Meryl, turn it over to you. Hold on, you're muted.
You'd think after 4 years or would have figured that out. So last week, the Finance Committee held its hearing on 5002. We had a good turnout of people testifying in favor and got a bunch of letters to the committee about that. I want to thank everyone for doing that. It is a short legislative session, which means that there are really not that many days that they're meeting to talk about things. I guess the big development this year is that they're not going to do a budget revision. And that is, it's because they concluded that if they reopened the budget, they were going to need to reduce the bottom line by $30 million because the tax, the thing that calculates the increase in the spending cap was not quite as strong as they thought last year when they did their 2-year budget. So what that means is that the money that the governor put in for early childhood is not in the mix right now. What the legislature has prioritized is higher education, nonprofits, and Medicaid reimbursement rates as the 3 things that they're looking at to take any surplus dollars, any remaining ARPA money, to try and channel it towards those 3 things. Now, this will be a set of negotiations between the legislature and the governor. So we don't know how hard the governor is going to push to get something for early childhood. Just don't know. And the the place where early childhood could get some money is 5,002, because that creates an early childhood fund. It calls for appropriating $50 million and for another 50 million in bonding. So it is quite possible that because it's a short session and there aren't a lot of session days for them to vote on bills, that anything early childhood related is going to get put into House Bill 5002 and then run as a bill that would create the fund and have whatever else. We're not sure yet. This is all still speculation. There is one real big concern about the bill to change and simplify the public school teacher certification, which is House Bill 5436. That bill changes the elementary education certificate or grade levels from kindergarten down to preschool. So makes it preschool through 6th grade. And the concern is that if a student has a choice between taking a program that gets you from birth to through 3rd grade or birth through preschool versus a preschool through 6th grade class or program, that students are all going to go into the one with more grade levels and therefore more job opportunities, and that will have an impact on those early childhood programs that offer bachelor's degrees in early childhood. And for the state-funded programs, particularly who need to have teachers with bachelor's degrees to meet their qualified staff requirements, the concern is that we lose the capacity to teach early childhood at the bachelor's degree level because those programs kind of shrivel up and get incorporated into the elementary ed program that's likely to have much less emphasis on early childhood and much more on reading and math. And I see Elsa has her hand up, and my guess is that she wants to comment on that particular bill.
Hold on one second. Elsa, if you are interested in joining, you're welcome to.
Just unmute yourself.
It's also possible that she put her hand up on accident. Okay, let's proceed. It's probably accidental.
Okay. So what this means is that we don't have a bunch of early childhood bills alive and kicking. We have one, 5002. We're not sure yet whether, I mean, my understanding is that they're going to incorporate whatever they want of the other early childhood bills into that one and run one bill. Teacher certification bill will probably remain as a freestanding bill. And we're working to try and change that, but I know that we're kind of swimming against the current because the chair of the committee has made it a priority to try and simplify teacher certification in the state. So all of that means that, you know, early childhood is not being seen as a huge priority in this session, and we have an opportunity on Wednesday to try and change the narrative. So why don't I hand it off to Ava to talk about Wednesday?
All right, Ava, you available?
I'm available. Let me
Great.
see if I get the camera on. What is happening? Sorry, guys. There we go. Ditto to everything that Meryl just said. If any of you have been wondering year after year, session after session, well, Meryl, Izzy, you know, Ava, they're just going to figure it out for us. And they're going to be at the Capitol and they're going to get us lots of money. They do these calls. They're there. That's not how it works. Every time we say it takes a village, we really depend on your voices. We're not kidding around. And this year is just one other year that we have to prove to the legislators that we are sticking together, that truly providers, parents, you know, caretakers really desperately need this money, that things are worse now than they were right after COVID, right? Right after COVID, there is so much money floating around, federal money, state money, and we were able together to channel our demands, come together and tell them things are really bad, and they heard us. Now, legislators seem to be getting a little sleepy. They think that things are fine. They think that they gave us enough money to figure things out, and that's obviously not the reality. So for Wednesday, when you're wondering, am I going to get any more help this year? Are the different legislative bills going to impact me good or bad? Being part of that conversation means being part of the rallies. So we move the rallies because of rain. If you're looking at the forecast, you might see a little bit of drizzle that we might be expecting, but nothing crazy. So we are going forward. Right now, I see a 30%, 40% chance of rain in different parts of the state, but it's going to be close to 60 degrees. We've got ponchos, we've got canopies. We're going to stand together, at the different site locations: Danbury, New Haven, Hartford, Torrington, Waterbury, Cheshire, Norwalk, Stamford, and Stratford. I think I might have missed one, but we're going to be there. And that means that we're going to share the message that we need more funding. We can't be ignored. Yes, 5002 is a great bill. Representative Farrar has done a phenomenal job bringing people together, but we can't just stop at 5002. We need real support, and any more money for programs that are about to close right now, more money for subsidy like Care for Kids right now means, saving parents and saving providers from losing their jobs. Literally, that's what's at stake. Losing their jobs. Providers like yourselves from closing down, or parents not being able to go to work and having to quit or being fired because they don't have childcare. So I really do hope that in the next, 48 hours, we can do a really hard push for people to participate. The RSVP link is important. The RSVP link allows us to have a good head count of how many people will be at each rally. And that way we have enough ponchos and supplies to hand out the day of the rally. You're going to see the RSVP link on the chat right now. But if you are with the kiddos and you can't look at the chat, you can always go to our website later, childcare4ct.org. That's childcare4ct.org, to be part of that conversation.
All right. So I posted the different sites in the chat. Remember, folks, if there isn't one in your town or city, you are welcome to go to the Hartford one, which is sort of a statewide one. It's by the Capitol. So that's 5:15 in the evening. Tashiana has her hand raised. Do you want to join us? You can unmute.
Yeah, I'm going back to what Meryl was saying about the bachelor degree. I have my bachelor degree in psychology and family counseling. I was in a meeting with Circle over the weekend, and they said that they're gonna start incorporate any degree as a part of early childhood. I just want to know how true that is. Since I have my bachelor, I'm currently working on my master in family counseling. So I don't have it in early childhood at all, but I do have 40, and well, just in my associate alone, I have 49 credit in early childhood, and my bachelor I should have enough to make it. But I just want to reconfirm how true is that?
Meryl, you're muted.
Okay. Do you have a state CDC contract?
No, I never really. I didn't know nothing about that.
Okay.
So
If you're a childcare provider who doesn't have a state contract, the BA requirement doesn't matter. It's only the state-funded programs who have either a school readiness contract or a CDC contract that have these requirements.
okay, so in order, I will have to become CDC or state funded contract.
So if they did another infant toddler expansion and they were to offer some more contracted slots,
Mhm.
they require you to have a qualified staff member. And it may be a little different for family childcare providers who just have a couple of slots. I don't remember that set of requirements. They're mostly, those CDC slots are usually in centers, but there were a few that got, a few family childcare providers that got 2 or 3 slots.
Yeah, I'll jump in here, Meryl. For the majority of home-based providers, most home-based providers accept care for kids. There are some who don't accept any kind of state subsidy. If you're a home-based provider and you're not connected with some sort of state program, you should know that your license is not contingent on education. There is no requirement. As a home-based provider, being licensed in your home is an inspection of your space. Of course, they're going to look at, exit signs, the correct notification to parents of, the use of the space, but it's pretty much child safety connected to where you live, right? So there is no requirement. They don't follow up on you having a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree. They do want you to have continuing education credits, and they ask you about it, but they don't frequently follow up to make sure that you do have it. If you are part of state programs, then you have to abide by the rules of those programs. With Head Start, there are certain requirements, and I know providers, depending on which CAP agency you're connected to. For example, I know that there's about 20 home-based providers in Waterbury that are Head Start program providers through Teams. And there's different agencies that allow you to be part of the Head Start program for home-based providers. And though those providers do have to have certain credentials, certain certificates, have curriculum, same thing with CDC, but overall, it's very competitive in order to obtain that additional state funding for those programs. But I would ask home-based providers to just make sure that you look at the rules and the changes. You can communicate with your liaison or the person assigned your program manager to know what's happening with those programs.
We've got a few questions in here. Are you guys comfortable with me asking
Sure.
now?
Yeah.
Okay, first is Angelica is asking, will applications for CDC be opened again?
It all depends on whether or not the state budget in the next cycle includes an expansion of the CDC program. Nothing's going to happen this coming fiscal year, the FY25, because there's not any money being talked about there. A couple of years ago, they did an expansion of 1,300 infant toddler spots, which was the first expansion they'd done in a decade.
Okay.
Can I make another comment before you ask the question?
Yeah.
For the home-based providers who accept care for kids and have the ability to be a union member, I highly recommend that in the next contract, you consider asking the state of Connecticut to recognize your degrees. In the current union contract, it only recognizes your degree if it's in early childhood or connected to early childhood. There's different versions of early childhood. So like the CDA are associate degree credits, and then you can go into an associate's degree, a full associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. But if you have a degree in psychology like Tashiana, you won't get a raise for taking the time out to go back to school. And if you as a whole, as a union, feel that having a degree in general really supports the work that you're doing, then maybe it might be worthwhile asking the state of Connecticut to recognize any degree, any bachelor's or master's degree for compensation rather than just early childhood. Just food for thought.
Okay. Christine is saying that Bill 5002, Section 6D, specifies that the Early Childhood Fund in FY 2025 would be limited to providers serving, quote, high-need populations. Does this mean that only providers in areas with high SVI would be eligible for support or grants in fiscal year 2025?
It is still unclear. There will be a committee set up, a commission set up to advise on the use of the funds. So that could be determined to be programs that serve care for kids' children. It could be high SVI. That still hasn't been finalized yet.
Okay, and somebody is asking if you can just explain a little more what's in HB 5002.
Okay, 5002 creates a fund that will be held at the treasurer's office and invested so that it will accumulate some interest. It is not a fund that at the end of the year, if there's some money that's not spent, gets swept back into the general fund. So like right now, the school readiness program has some closed classrooms because programs can't find staff. And all the money that would be supporting those spaces in those classrooms is not getting spent. At the end of the year, that money all gets swept. And the legislature can either reappropriate it or it goes into the rainy day fund, which is full, which means it then slops over into paying down pension debt. This would say, no, that money is early childhood money. It doesn't get, doesn't lapse. It doesn't get swept back, and that it will get used to augment the general appropriations, and that a commission will help to decide what, how that money is going to get used, or how it's going to be prioritized.
There's also the exploration of a pilot program called TriShare in order to connect businesses with providers and state funding. So try, three different funding sources to pay for childcare. So the businesses paying for childcare, the state of Connecticut paying for childcare, and the parent paying for childcare to try to reduce the overall cost of care. So they added language in to pilot that program and see if it might be something that could help, in theory, Connecticut businesses and providers.
Okay, Ava, can you see the questions in the chat?
Yeah, I saw a Spanish one, but then I think it got answered. Maria Reyes wanted to know about the OEC grants. I think that the confusion there was we were talking about the CDC rather than OEC.
Yes, all right, great.
I'll mute myself.
All right, I think that's,
We've
oh
got a
wait,
hand
Morgan.
raised.
Yep, we got a hand raised. Morgan, you're welcome to join. Could be an accident. If you can mute yourself, you're welcome to join us, Morgan. All right, we'll let that. Eileen, go ahead.
Hi there.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a couple of questions. Is there stuff for Wednesday night that you need us to stress? Do you have the bills that you want us to push? Do you have copies for us to hand out to people in English and Spanish? It's just something I think we could use to benefit if we're going to get, our legislators are going to be coming to this, maybe putting some information of things we want to see from the old bills added to 5002. Just
That's
a thought.
a great question, Eileen. So for Wednesday rallies, all of these speakers that we had confirmed from last week reconfirmed through this week, so that's good. And I do want to emphasize that these rallies are parent and provider centered. There was in one of our planning meetings last week, there was a provider who mentioned concerns about having too much politician involvement in these rallies, because these rallies are about us. These rallies are about making demands, and the politicians are not exactly, the majority of them are not exactly on our side. The exception to that, I totally agree with that statement. This is about the parent and provider voice. The exception to that in 3 occasions, 3 different speakers, are 3 particular people who are dedicated to helping us. So we have Representative Kate Farrar, who's going to be speaking. We have Representative Michelle Cook, you know, in their respective rallies in their towns. And these are politicians who have been really embracing early ed and early care for, you know, this year, previous years, that we welcome them to be part of the conversation. But with that said, back to your question, Eileen, we would ask that anyone participating in the rallies, if you are volunteering or if you actively want to have that conversation with an elected official or you're presenting, you do refer back to 5002 and also funding for early ed, right? To put back the funding that was being proposed by the governor. We do have a toolkit ready to go, like papers and instructions to the rally captains that we already handed out to them. And at every rally, you're going to see a table with QR codes and also paper, like informational papers that we're handing out to participants, where you can give that to the parent that's, you know, physically there, or ask them to QR code scan it, and it redirects them to our website. On our website, the day of, we will have our membership page open and more information of like how you can get involved with this conversation. And hopefully that's helpful, Eileen.
Okay, thank you. I did want to also say that for the first time in many years, we just got our budgets on Friday for school readiness grants, which are due May 1st, but we just finally got our monies that we're getting from the state. And I'm about 120,000 short to fulfill the needs that are in my community at this point. And I'm sure I'm not alone across the state. So the lack of funding is really going to make us have to close some more classrooms, which is crazy. And to share that.
So the governor's bill, early childhood bill 5051, included creating the Even Start program, or the Early Start program, which combines school readiness and CDCs. It created, there's sort of several bills that are trying to do the same thing. So 5002 includes TriShare. EDS did the governor's bill. And there are some things in 5051, the governor's early start bill, that are not in other bills. The big thing there is the combining of this CDC and school readiness programs into one contracted program, and then modifying the QSM requirements for those state-funded programs to make it easier to meet them. And kind of recognizing the difficulty that programs are having now hiring staff with the degrees. It gives you some more leeway. That section, the QSM section, was pulled out of the appropriations version of 5001. So we're not sure that 5051 is going to actually run as its own bill. It may get merged into something else. But for particularly the state-funded programs, talking to your legislators about the challenges you face with staffing, the importance of those original QSM requirements or changes, and the idea of simplifying and streamlining the state-funded system so that you don't have programs having to do 2 and 3 different sets of paperwork to get their funding. That's all important stuff, and it is still in the mix. There's going to be a bunch of negotiations about what gets included in bills in the sort of a final version of what gets run. They've really got less than 2 weeks of session days. I mean, it's sort of like 3 days here and 4 days there, and the last week is pretty solid, but there's not a lot of time for them to pass bills. So they're likely to do the negotiations behind closed doors and then come up with a bill that they've decided they're going to run. And we need to make sure legislators understand the importance of some of the changes that were proposed.
Thanks, Meryl. Ava, you're welcome to go ahead, but let me just first say that I put in the chat for everyone, there's a talking points document, which kind of outlines what the asks are for Wednesday. That's in English and Spanish. You'll also see that document contains photo guidelines. This is something that is printed out and given to all the rally captains, but you all are welcome to read it as well. That's also linked in the toolkit, which has a lot of other information. And that was also put in the chat. So you can access any of those through the toolkit and you know, talk to them. You can use those to speak with your legislators, not just on Wednesday. Ava.
I just wanted to go back really quickly because I saw that a lot of people joined in the last 10 minutes. We're like close to 170 people on this call. And for anyone who joined just now or was with the kiddos and a little busy, a reminder that Meryl started this call today laying out the lay of the land at the Capitol, and it's bleak. It's not good news. The short version is no new money right now is coming. That's it. There's no new money. So if folks on this call thought that there was going to be another bailout because things are really hard and difficult, just like Eileen Costello mentioned just now on this call, that she has to find a gap of over $100,000, and that means closing classrooms. If you are living in that same situation, there's right now no emergency money. And the only way to change that is to make our demands very, very clear to the elected officials as to why funding matters for childcare.
Yeah. All right. There was another question in the chat. Ava, did you see that? It was in Spanish.
Another one.
I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to let Angelica had a follow-up.
Checking it right now. Is it possible? So she wrote, is it possible that Care for Kids can make a change on the way that we enter our bill statements, our monthly bill statements, and give an incentive to providers who have NAFC accreditation or have additional special needs, have Care for Kids with special needs in a separate column, so we can have real money in real time to help families. So that one's a little tricky, Angelica, because the providers who are Care for Kids providers like yourself who are unionized, there's a collective bargaining agreement that allows you to negotiate for additional funding and bonuses for caring for children, of caring for children with special needs or caring for children who need additional support. So as of now, if you're on this call and you're a home-based provider that has a child that is special needs or needs additional care, be it allergies, extreme allergies, or behavioral issues or trauma, you could apply for additional money, monthly payment money, a raise, because of that care that you're providing. You just have to submit the paperwork. Specifically, if you have NAFC accreditation, you also have the ability to put in paperwork for additional money, a raise. If you're no longer accepting a child with Care for Kids and you're still caring for a child with special needs, then your only way to get a raise is through the parent, unfortunately.
Okay. And I just wanted you all to know, I've changed my background. This is one of our rally signs. We have them in English and in Spanish. They're super great. Come to rallies. You can have an amazing sign for the rally. You can have it to bring back to your center and put it up on the wall. We also have tons of hats. There's t-shirts. There's all kinds of awesome swag for you guys to use on that day, make noise, and show your interest. So Tashiana and Angelica also have some questions. So Angelica, I'll let you go first. It may be Angelica. Oh, and wait, make sure.
Gracias, buenos días a todos.
Put
Sobre
your language, folks,
dice,
English or
con las
Spanish.
necesidades especiales. Mi pregunta es, español.
You can continue in
Oh,
Spanish.
ok, ok. So, entonces le pongo acá en el. Déjame ver. Yo lo tengo en español, pero le tengo
Sí,
que regresar a la idioma.
puedes continuar, puedes continuar.
¿Ahora? Ok. Mi pregunta es, si tenemos, habemos muchas proveedoras que tenemos acreditación de NAPSI y niños con necesidades especiales. ¿Qué pasa? Care for Kids pone esos incentivos y los incluye en la última columna, que es la ayuda a los papás, lo que incrementa esa cantidad. So, mandan un nuevo certificado que le llega también al papá y el papá al ver ese certificado dice, oh, me subieron la ayuda. Eso no, eso, ellos piensan que ya ellos no nos deben de pagar ningún copay, pero no es que están subiendo esa cantidad porque se les está ayudando a ellos, es por los incentivos que tenemos nosotros. Yo llamé a Care for Kids y para entender un poquito más de esto, me dijeron que yo tenía que hablar con el papá y explicarle que eso era mi incentivo, pero hay papás que no entienden y nos está creando un conflicto con ellos. So, mi pregunta es si Care for Kids podía eh, agregar una columna a su sistema donde ellos separen lo que es el incentivo del proveedor y la cantidad real que el papá tiene de ayuda de Care for Kids.
In order for this year's legislative cycle to incorporate changes on the application, it's too late. It's too late to propose a legislative bill of how the paperwork currently looks. We, as advocates next year, we could see if we could make that request of Care for Kids and OEC next year, or in their regulation change maybe, or internal, but the union is your best route. Meryl?
Yeah, the federal government has just released the preprint for the Child Care Development Block Grant Plan, and the state has to submit a Child Care Development Block Grant Plan this year. Using the hearing process to explain that problem and how you want to change it so that it is clear that this is an incentive to providers for serving those higher needs children, rather than the parents are getting a certificate worth more money towards your tuition. That, so that what Angelica was explaining is that the parents think that, oh, OEC's or Care for Kids has just said that they're giving me more money towards that tuition bill, not that the provider is going to get paid more because they're serving a child with special needs.
Before you go to Tatiana, Meryl, the bill that we were working on in order to streamline the application a little easier, specifically for the subsidy and using the federal, that bill is dead, right?
I don't think so. I think that
No.
I'll go back and look. I would not be surprised if that piece gets resurrected.
I'm just curious to see if we resurrect it, then could we make an adjustment on the invoice? If we're streamlining on the parent and provider side the application process, why not streamline in the invoice side, which would then possibly help Angelica's question?
So my sense is that this is administrative rather than legislative.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
Block grant hearing.
Yeah, and it's not something that requires a legislative change. It already exists. It's just the mechanics of how it's delivered now.
So my concern, I agree with you that this is technically not legislative and it's administrative, but in previous, using past experience that I've, as previous child care director, saw, whenever we made requests from OEC to do administrative changes, it was a lot of money. They have to pay Deloitte, thousands and thousands of dollars. I think when we requested OEC to do like political action funds, it was going to cost them close to $80,000 in their portal, like to make that switch on a electronic form. They'd have to pay a consulting firm that manages the digital footprint, right? How it looks, thousands of dollars to make that adjustment. And when it comes to money, then we're looking at, is there enough money in the OEC budget, additional money to pay for those changes? So that's why I'm thinking it's slightly legislative, not in the sense of the legislators have to decide if this is the right or wrong thing to do, but more or less, you know, does OEC have the money to dish out to make those changes possible?
To me, it's a Care for Kids administrative process. They found the money when they needed to hire more people to work at Care for Kids, to process applications, to change a payment processing system so that they're not telling the parents that they've got a bigger subsidy, and instead providing the bonus directly to the provider. Doesn't seem like that's a thing that needs a legislative change. So,
right. We have a couple of questions in the Q&A as well. But let me just ask, Angelica, did that answer your question? I think we're set there. And Tashiana, were you all set as well?
No, I just wanted to answer Angelica's question, is what she's saying about the increment. Care for Kids when we negotiated, because I'm part of the bargaining team, we negotiated for 25% more for special needs, children with special needs. Angelica, you have to look in that parent provider that certificate and you have to highlight that to the parent to show them where Care for Kids say that you may charge more. It's on it in the bottom of your certificate. And then you can speak to your liaison to let them be more specific. And when you go to your invoice, if you look at your invoice before you submit it, it said if you're national accredited, especially it's stated on it. You just have to look at the invoice, scroll down to the bottom of it, and you will see where it shows that the increments and how much you get paid. But just speak to your liaison, and if you need more information or help, I'm here to help you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, we've got a few questions in the Q&A. Actually, Tashiana, maybe you could put your email or contact in the chat, or chat it directly to Angelica if that's useful. Or of course, always send it through us if that's needed. Okay, Eileen wants to know, does this mean that, we're going back a little, does this mean that OEC won't be paying state-funded programs directly starting in July? This was causing a lot of stress among providers who are worried the payment system won't be functional by July.
No, they're not changing the payment system July 1. They were talking about changing it in July of 2025. And that requires the passage of House Bill 5051. It also requires some appropriations to cover the cost of doing that.
Okay. Someone is concerned that the LISC grant, that they haven't heard back yet from the LISC grant. They're wondering, was this a scam? Why are they keep pushing the date back? Meryl, can you shed a little light on that?
Yeah, it's because they got so many more applications than they anticipated, and it's taken a long time to go through them. There are some programs who have whose application was approved, and then when they were told that they were approved, there were changes or things that had come up since the application. And so there's a lot of sort of sorting through. The family child care application process has been slowed down by the fact that the center-based application process took longer than anticipated. But my understanding is that they're in the process now of notifying the programs whose applications look like they're fundable. And but understand, there were so many more applications than there was money to fund. We hope that there will be some more money that comes through in already approved bonding authority to fund some more facilities projects, but we know that there's a lot of work. And as Claire is putting in, the LISC team has been meeting in their United Way office conference room, and they've been working hard to go through all those applications. I know that they're still working on it. I think that most of the center-based decisions have pretty much been made and programs are being notified. It's the family child care where there were so many more of them. The applications were, not written by grant writers. They were a little bit, took more detailed reading of them to figure out what was really being proposed. And
yeah, Claire is saying in the chat, I work for United Way. They've been using our conference room to deliberate. They're working hard on reviewing all applications. Sounds like it was a little more complicated than anticipated, which is the story of our industry. That seems like the way it always works. Okay. Anything else, Meryl or Ava, that you wanted to go over before we wrap up?
just Wednesday.
Wednesday. I did put
Yeah.
the signs, I put the signs in the chat. They're in English and Spanish if people want to download them. For a bulletin board, if you want to make them your Zoom background, you've got them there. Lots of choices in English and Spanish. But listen, coming to these rallies, it's really important. The number of people that we have makes a difference. This past week, there was an action. It was literally like a 12-hour overnight last ditch effort. I think there was something sent out at about 10 p.m. and by 10 a.m. there was 100 letters that were sent to legislators. By a few hours later, 150, and 5002 got pushed over the line out of finance and onto the next step. And I really believe that a lot of that was due to the number of you who last minute said, hold on, don't forget about us. So if you think that these numbers don't matter, they matter. And your voice matters. You make a difference in this. And so if you can show up, show up. If you can send people, send people. You know, there's ones in the morning, there's ones in the evening. Mansfield last week was on Tuesday. It was awesome. If you go to the Child Care for Connecticut social media, you can see some of the clips. Meryl gave a great speech. There was some others there who, who really shared some amazing information, some passion. You can go there to see what there was, but please share out information in your social media. Take this stuff and share it out. The more people we get at these rallies, the more effective they will be. So that's, I guess, the last word. For any of you who have been marking Ramadan, I hope that Eid is satisfying and restful for you, and a nice wrap up to your holiday. Well, I don't know if it's holiday. I guess it's the holiday month, but to your marking. I hope it's a nice wrap up, and that you have nice time with family and friends. And for all of the rest of us here, we'll hope to see you Wednesday, and then we'll see you again next Monday. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good week.